Hi, I'm back. Back with part 2 of my commentary on the Discogs 20 Essential Jazz Fusion Records that everyone should own. Everyone. Blending jazz, rock, and funk, jazz fusion sent the genre into new cosmic planes. Explore 20 of the best albums in the list below. This is by Brandon Owsley. Very astute choices by Mr. Owsley. Based on what he chose, I think he's probably a millennial. I don't know why. I just get that vibe. But it's a good list, and he knows what he's talking about. He writes a little blurb. I urge you to go to Discogs. On the main page, look under Digs, and then search Fusion. And it's the first thing that comes up. I just got it in my email, though, like 2 days ago. I guess they're recycling these things and sending them to people based on our obvious interests. So I'm going to do the other 20. I rearranged them chronologically since they were in no particular order. And what are we listening to? We're listening to another record with me on drums. I know, isn't it awful? Isn't it terrible? I'm just a bad person. This is Love Unfold the Sun, a great group that I'm lucky to be in. I'm lucky to be in any group, really, the way I play. And it's called Explode Yourself. And it's Mustafa Stefandil. He's the guitar and oud player extraordinaire and also composed everything. And this one's available via lasersedge.com, Ken Golden's organization. And yeah, I think Wayside Music might have copies, and I think it's on Bandcamp as well. I don't have many copies, so don't ask me. The Present Moment one that I played in the other, contact me. I've got a box of them. But also Bandcamp. Anyway, that's what's playing now, and you'll hear it. And this is like the rock sort of fusion, you know what I'm saying? The screaming guitar fusion. Of course, there's jazz funk fusion too, which I love, and all kinds of other fusions. I love it all, until they start singing. No. Anyway, here we go with the rest of the list. All right, so the second 10, he led off with Faces and Places by Donald Byrd, which is definitely an influential record. Donald Byrd was a really interesting trumpeter and composer, had a beautiful tone, played a lot of flugelhorn as well. He was also an academic. A friend of mine, Chris Jonas, studied under him. I think he was at Oberlin, and he might have been somewhere else too, teaching. Anyway, really one of the greats. And of course, did a bunch of hard bop LPs for Blue Note, but became sort of the standard bearer for jazz funk fusion, and was collaborating with the Mizell brothers, and did these records that at the time they were savaged in the jazz press. Like they would get 1 star or 2 stars from Downbeat and all kinds of withering comments. But subsequently they've been adopted and loved by the hip hop community and now by the jazz public at large, and they're being hailed as classics, which I think is great. I think I love stuff like that. Almost as much as I love my 76ers who beat the Celtics. Anyway, I won't go into that. Donald Byrd released so many great records. It's really hard to choose. And I didn't bring up some of the obvious choices from the previous list. I didn't talk about the live Miles Davis things, Dark Magus and Agartha and Pangea. And I didn't talk about Santana's live LP Lotus. Those are all classics too. So just giving them lip service. Back to Donald Byrd. He did this record for Blue Note. And Ethiopian Nights. It's actually the first one I got. I sort of missed out on him because of the disco jazz funk thing that I wasn't into, because a lot of his records had background vocals, and I'll admit as a teenager and even today a lot of times vocals in jazz is just a turn off, but subsequently I've broadened my scope and I'm digging it. Anyway, Ethiopian Nights is straight up jazz funk record, and it's very adventurous. Definitely shows the influence of Miles Davis, circa Bitches Brew and In a Silent Way. And it's a real classic. And I would have chosen this rather than Faces and Places, but Faces and Places, it's an important record now. Another Donald Byrd record that they could have gone with is this one. And it's from that same series that Bobby Humphrey's record was on from the previous video. It's his Blue Note Montreux collaboration, and I think this was not originally issued in the 70s. I think this came out much more recently because it's got liner notes by Larry Mizell, and it's got a barcode on it. So yeah, this came out in 2013 and then again in 2022. So, but it should be readily available. It's really great. It's a little bit more stripped down, and it's got amazing personnel on it. Of course, the Mizell brothers are on it. Nathan Davis, Henry Franklin, Kevin Toney, all the guys that appear on most of his later Blue Note stuff, plus more. Highly recommended. The next one on his list was this. I've got the CD of it, and this is definitely a record that I super got into in high school, possibly in middle school. When was this? 75, would have been high school, would have been my sophomore year. Liston Smith and the Cosmic Echoes, Expansions. What a great record. And this is one of the records I just talked about vocals. This has great vocals on it by Donald Smith, his brother, who actually recorded some really cool albums on his own. Anyway, I grew up listening to this, basically. It's a big favorite, and it should be in the collection of anybody interested in fusion or what's known as spiritual jazz. It's just got that vibe. Liston Smith, of course, played with Miles, played with Gato Barbieri. He'd been around, knew what he was doing, seasoned customer. He also released a record called Astral Traveling on the Flying Dutchman label. This is a good record, not a great record. The really great one by him, besides Expansions, good pick by Owsley, I have to say, is this. It's Cosmic Funk, which is exactly this perfect title for this record. It is funky and it's cosmic. And it's got an up-tempo version of John Coltrane's Naima. It's also got a version of Footprints on it that's pretty cool. But yeah, this is a really good record. Really good record. And the personnel is pretty interesting. Donald Smith on flute and vocals. George Barron, an unsung hero, on tenor sax. Al Anderson on bass. Lawrence Killian and Art Gore on percussion and drums. Those guys were in Liston Smith's band all along. And Doug Hammond, Andrew Surreal, and Ron Bridgewater, who all play other instruments mostly except for Surreal, on percussion. Anyway, great record. Really, any of Liston Smith's stuff on Flying Dutchman is worth getting, I think. Okay, next on the list, I'm looking at it over here, I'm cheating. I don't have it memorized. George Duke. I love that Brandon Owsley picked out George Duke records. This is the one he recommends. I love the blues. He heard my cry. Or she heard my cry. And he had a very sort of tight association. Always had the same musicians on his records. On the MPS BASF label, these predated his records. More funky, more vocal-oriented records for Epic that he signed to after his contract with MPS ran out. Johnny Guitar Watson's on this. Airto and Flora on this. Ndugu, Lee Ritenour, Byron Miller, George Johnson, Daryl Sturmer. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. This is, of course, after he left Zappa. Some of these records were while he was with Zappa, but this one from 1975. I think he might have still been with Zappa at that point. Anyway, great record. The one before this, The Aura Will Prevail, they used to play this on the radio before the news, and they wouldn't tell me who it was. They would just play it and then fade it out, and I'd be like, I want to know what that is. Eventually I found out, and it's this, The Aura Will Prevail. And this is a little bit tighter personnel-wise. Byron Miller on bass, and Dugu on drums. Icarus Johnson, I believe, on guitar. And then there's some vocalists as well. No, it doesn't look like there's any guitar on this. Anyway, great record, really great. And then the last one he did, I think the last one or next to last one, Liberated Fantasies. Another great George Duke record on MPS. Anyway, I totally agree with Owsley on this. These are fusion classics, and they're equal parts jazz funk and jazz rock. That's what I like about them. You know, the whole Zappa thing had a huge influence on George Duke, and there's a kind of a rockish, also humorous edge to pretty much everything he ever did. But it's really apparent on those MPS records. And of course, he did a couple of more straight ahead jazz records on the same label, George Duke and Feel and Faces in Reflection, all really worthwhile. More jazz or funky jazz than fusion. He did also Inner Source, which is a stone cold jazz record, great record, also for MPS, very hard to get. And he did the George Duke keyboard album where he plays all the instruments. And that was released later after he went on to greater success on the on the Columbia label, Epic or whatever. Anyway, George Duke, genius. The next one on the list, can't argue with this, Jeff Beck, Blow by Blow. And how many times have I listened to this? If I had $1, I'd have $1,000. if I had $1 for every time I listened to this. What a great record, and kind of an unsung band too. Phil Chen on bass, Richard Bailey on drums, Max Middleton, the great Max Middleton on keyboards. I don't need to go on too long about this, but this is widely recognized as a masterpiece. And Owsley was totally in line recommending it, but he could have recommended any of these Jeff Beck records. Wired with Narada Michael Walden and Jan Hammer. This is the beginning of his lengthy collaboration with Jan Hammer. And that was a great collaboration because he recorded this live record with the Jan Hammer band, Tony Smith, Stephen Kindler, and Fernando Saunders. Great record. Any of these could have been in his top 20. And then finally, this is a little undersung. I really like this record. And this is when he moved into away from the Jan Hammer collaboration into a collaboration with another great keyboardist, Tony Hymas, and drummer Simon Phillips. This is called There and Back. And one side, minus one cut, has Jan Hammer, and the other side has Tony Hymas plus one cut, Simon Phillips and Mo Foster on bass. And this has that incredible track called Space Boogie. That's like, will just knock your socks off. He could have put this on the list and I wouldn't have argued. So Mr. Owsley, hats off to you. This is a good list. I'm not complaining at all. Until now. So the next record on his list chronologically was Romantic Warrior by Return to Forever, which in my opinion is an okay record. It's okay. I don't know. They'd gone a little... The sound by the time they got on the record, onto that record, was getting a little precious, a little prog rock, a little calculated for my money. There's something very wild and crazy about jazz rock fusion that I really liked, or even jazz funk. More improvisational, more immediate. I felt that Romantic Warrior kind of lacked that flavor. It's a good record. I think I have a CD of it somewhere, but by no stretch is it a top 20 record, in my opinion. In your opinion, it might be. Feel free to argue. Not going to change my mind. If he had said either of the first two records before he got a guitar player, when he had Joe Farrell and Flora and Airto in the band, I would have gone with that. Those are great records. First one's on ECM, second one's on Polydor, Light as a Feather. Those are great records, but they're like Latin jazz, but they're kind of fusion. No problem with that. But for my money, this is the fusion classic that Chick Corea did. And it's got the best guitarist that he ever worked with in my opinion. Bill Connors on it. Al Di Meola, one of the greats, no doubt about it. But Bill Connors, man, some very Hendrix / McLaughlin energy in his playing, and yet he sounded like no one else. This is such a great record. And if you've ever tried to play drums along with it, the tempos on this are absolutely unforgiving. I don't know how they did it. They're so fast. I don't know how they got these songs to work. I saw Daphnis Prieto last night, and it gave me the same feeling that this album gives me. It's like, what planet were these people from? I mean, really, it's just the kind of music that just makes you shake your head and think, how did they do this? How? I haven't a clue. Anyway, this is such a great record. The compositions are amazing. The playing is outstanding. I've listened to this record also thousands of times. It's just him in the Seventh Galaxy. Way better than Romantic Warrior. So that's the only choice that I openly disagreed with on the whole list, frankly. Even the records that I don't have. All right, moving on. He recommends Jaco Pastorius' solo debut. Can't argue with that. I used to have the LP. Sold it. Stupid. I had the CD. I thought, it's a mass-produced record on a major label. Now it's, for some reason, it's going for bucks. I don't know. Oh well. Anyway, the CD has 2 unreleased tracks, which to me makes it worth it. And this is a really cool record because it gets into a lot of areas, definite some jazz funk, definite some more straight ahead kinds of sounds, yet plugged in. Also some real heavy Latin stuff on this, oddly enough. Used to be a cha-cha, my favorite tune on the record. They do 2 versions on the CD with the extra tracks. Anyway, this was a big message to the world. I am here, and I'm gonna blow your mind for a few years. And Jaco definitely blew everyone's mind. Redefined the role of the bass in the music, and just knocked us all out permanently. Changed the sound of music forever. How many musicians do that? Another favorite by him was this. Definitely a exploito effort. This came out on the IAI label under Paul Bley's name, and then when Jaco hit it big, they re-released this with the title Jaco. And this is actually kind of a free jazz fusion record. It's really groovy though. It's got Pat Metheny on it and Bruce Ditmas, a very undersung and fantastic drummer. And this is a great record. This is some smoking stuff. This is really raw and I love it. I've got the CD as well. So I've got both the LP and the CD. So I'm sure, it was released without anyone's permission. Nearly as close to a bootleg as you can get, but it's a must-have. A must-have. You got to get it if you like the genre. The next record on his list was School Days by Stanley Clarke. Again, no argument with that. I've had the LP for years. Now I've got the CD. CD does not have any extra tracks on it. Stanley Clarke's output, the first 3 records, I would say, are must-haves. He could have listed any of these, and I wouldn't have argued. This is a great record, but the one previous, just called Stanley Clarke, a lot of people think this is Stanley Clarke's first record. It's not. Listen to the personnel on this. Tony Williams on drums, Bill Connors on guitar, yes, that Bill Connors, and Jan Hammer on keyboards. I mean, you can't go wrong with a band like that. As I recall, when the album came out, and I was, still a teenager, because this is from '74, so I was 14, maybe 15. We were all a little bit underwhelmed by it, given the personnel. It's aged incredibly well, and my friend Russell and I have a joke about Vulcan Princess on this, where he sings, and it's a little shaky, but it's wonderful. It's a real kind of period piece, but there are some historic and incredible moments on this. Lopsy Lou, what a beat on that. And then Tony Williams' drum solo. I can't remember. I think at the beginning of Lopsy Lou is incredible. This is just classic. This is classic. And then This is completely different. This is almost like a Norman Connors kind of a sound, like a spiritual jazz record. It's on Polydor, and it's got Andy Bay on it, Phoebe Bridgewater, Pat Martino, Art Webb, really interesting personnel. Stanley Clarke, Chick Corea, of course Stanley Clarke is on it, it's his record. And Lenny White, so it's got all of Return to Forever Mark 1 on it. Anyway, it's not a jazz rock record. It's more of spiritual jazz funk sound. Great record. Still cheap, too. I believe I've featured it as in one of my cheap heat videos. Moving on, I love this selection because this guy Brandon recognizes that, maybe some people who've moved into different places in the music world really recorded some vitally important jazz funk and jazz rock early in their careers. And in this case, Patrice Rushen. She was on a lot of records back in the day, back in the 70s. This came out in 1977, the year I graduated from high school. And it's called Shout It Out. And at the time I thought of this as sort of a sellout. It's on Prestige. It's a really great record label. But at the time I wasn't into it because I had heard these records first. So her Before the Dawn, I think she was like a teenager when she recorded these. And Prelusion. Prelusion's got Joe Henderson on it. Imagine being a teenager, composing all your own stuff and having Joe Henderson on your record. I couldn't imagine it. This is from 74, this is from 75. These are great fusion records. I mean, these do belong in your collection. As does this, because in retrospect, I bought this at the behest of my friend Chris, and I was blown away by how good it is. It's really different. It's really overtly an electric, plugged-in jazz funk, no holds barred kind of sound. There's some singing on it. It's fine. It's just fine. Some great players on it. Al McKay from Earth, Wind & Fire's on it. James Gadsden's the drummer. I mean, come on. So, Shout It Out, it's called. I think Owsley's right so far. There's only one thing two things now that I'd argue with. His next record is James Mason. And that is really well known. Rhythm of Life. It's become a very well-known record. And I remember hanging out at my freshman year in college at the local record store in Greenville, South Carolina. It's called Horizons Records. And they were pushing this record on me. Oh, you like jazz? Why don't you get that James Mason LP? And I would listen to it. They had an open copy. And I just didn't dig it. And of course, now it goes for like $500. I guess I should have bought it. But the thing is, I've never dug that record. I don't know why. Just never. I even bought the reissue thinking I've grown up, I've changed, my tastes have changed. It just never, I don't know, I just never vibed with that record that much. What I would get instead from kind of the same crowd of musicians and on the same label, I'm trying to be consistent here, is this, The Blue Path by Teruo Blue. And most of these guys are on the James Mason record. You may not have heard of most of them. Most of them aren't big names. Marvin Blackman on saxophones, Brady Speller percussion, Ryo Kawasaki, one of my favorite all-time guitarists, on guitar, Phil Clendenin on keyboards, Kevin Atkins on drums, and Barry Coleman on bass. This is a killin' jazz rock fusion record. There's one sort of mellow track on here. The rest of it is absolutely smoking. And Ryo Kawasaki is on fire throughout. This is a must-have if you're into the genre at all. And it's been reissued several times. They recorded another record that's much more sort of a jazz funk R&B kind of sound, but this is a no-holds-barred proto Mahavishnu style record, and it is killing. The Blue Path by Teruo Blue. The penultimate, next to last record on his list, chronologically. Gary Bartz, Music Is My Sanctuary. And I've heard all kinds of stuff about these records. Of course, I was familiar with Gary Bartz from his work with Miles, and also his earlier records with his group in Two Troop on Prestige, I believe, or Milestone. Those are great records. They've got Andy Bay on them. There's some vocals on those tracks, but they're really great. I mean, Andy Bay is one of the great singers of our time. there's exceptions to every rule. And some of his later stuff was definitely more jazz funk oriented. And this album is definitely more jazz funk oriented. But it's really good. And it's actually later. It's from 77. And there's a couple, he's on Capitol now on this record. And he recorded a couple of records before this, I think, for Capitol, at least one, that I didn't like. This is really good, though. This is kind of a jazz concept album, I think. And it's just, I think it's another Mizell Brothers production. And it's got all the hallmarks. It's kind of lush, but it's really interesting. It'll hold your interest. It's not a snooze fest, and it's not a sellout either. It is an artistic statement. I really like Gary Bartz, and I've become a bigger fan of his over the years. All of his stuff for Milestone is great, and his more recent records are great. But this remains a favorite. Really like this record a lot. Follow the Medicine Man by Two Troop. And Gary Bartz, Andy Bay, Stafford James, and Howard King, with Hubert Eves on one side, and a guitarist, Hector Centeno, on a couple of tracks. I mean, this is a really, really cool record. And I would have chosen this before Music Is My Sanctuary, but I get it. Music Is My Sanctuary was kind of a hit record for Gary Bartz. And this was a little bubbling underneath the surface. Nevertheless, a great record, a great artist. Finally, the last record chronologically in his list was Heavy Weather by Weather Report. And I don't have the LP anymore. I do have the CD, and it is one of Weather Report's shining moments. There are many shining moments in Weather Report's history, and I'm not going to go on about this, but this is one of those records. There's no weak tracks. There's even sort of a throwaway percussion solo by Manolo Badrena on this that's kind of whacked out, but it's still great, and it kind of belongs. And I like the CD because it just plays all the way through, and I think that's kind of the intent on the album. Anyway, I'm going to talk about my favorite Weather Report albums very briefly. This is the album that doesn't get much traction, and to me, it's much more of a classic fusion sound. Tail Spinning with Ndugu and Illyrio Lima and Alfonso Johnson. This is pre-Jaco. I love this record. It's just so evocative of so many things. I think it's because I got it when I was 15. It's from 1975, and my brain was still developing. This is my favorite Weather Report right here. Other great Weather Report records. This is the first one that I bought because it had synthesizers and no vocals. Sweet Nighter. Again, it kind of made me the person that I am, along with Zappa and Beefheart. Very few artists have a really great bootleg out. This is a bootleg, Weather Report bootleg, and it's called, what is it called? Solarizations. It's really excellent. It's well recorded, and of course all the tracks are available on their studio records, but it's really great. I love this record. Finally, I'm going to recommend a record that should be on the list but wasn't. And my feelings about this record are very strong, but this absolute classic record, Alan Holdsworth's IOU, with Gary Husband, Paul Carmichael, and Paul Williams, not short Paul Williams, but British Paul Williams on singing. It is outstanding. If you like fusion at all, you need to have this record. It's, and the interplay between Gary Husband and Alan Holdsworth on this is completely inscrutable. I don't know how Paul Carmichael was able to play bass in the space between them, because there is very little space between them. And he's been criticized for his playing, like, he wasn't that good. Actually, no, I think he was a ninja master. He did exactly what he needed to do on this record. He was kind of like Rick Laird in the Mahavishnu Orchestra, because you've got Cobham and McLaughlin. Here you've got Husband and Holdsworth, and they were right on the same level as McLaughlin and Cobham, if you ask me. And what Carmichael does on this record is magical. The vocals are even good. The lyrics are profound. It's the whole package. You got to get this. Of course, it's been reissued and it's on CD, and just get it. Just get it if you don't have it. So that's the Brandon Owsley Top 20 plus one. My reaction is, this is a really good list. Guy did his homework. He understands the music. He likes the music, most importantly. Of course, there's literally thousands of other records that could get on that list. But if you're starting out, or if you're just getting into it, or you're asking questions, or you think there's holes in your collection, this is a good place to start. Good place to start, and I'm really happy with it. Anyway, thanks for being with me for over half an hour. It's insane, isn't it? Anyway, take care, and I'll see you soon with Cheap Heat.